Hey guys, how's it going? It's Andy from Magoo Investing. Welcome back. In this episode of Robinhood Top Stocks, we're going to be talking about the top stock on Robinhood finally, and we're going to be talking about Aurora Cannabis, ticker symbol ACB. And so this is a stock that I've been kind of holding back on talking for a long time because I wasn't super confident talking about weed stocks. And in the past couple weeks, I made a video about TLRY, and if you missed that, I'll throw that up here. And I kind of broke down my problem that I have with weed stocks overall. And so today I thought it'd be a good time to kind of go talk about Aurora Cannabis, compare it to TLRY, and talk about the long-term future of the stock. It has had a roller coaster, to say the least. I know I say that for a lot of companies, but when I show you the charts in a little bit, it's had a lot of stuff happen to it. But before we get started, I gotta say that I'm not a licensed financial advisor, and I'd highly recommend talking to a professional, someone that can find you the best places to put your money going forward. In addition, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like and subscribe button, as it would help my channel out a lot. So Aurora Cannabis is the most popular stock on Robinhood currently, and I think there's kind of three reasons for that. One, the stock is pretty cheap, and so people that are coming in and starting investing, they see a cheap stock and it lowers the barrier of entry. The second is that it's a weed stock. For a younger person like myself, the ability to invest in legal weed and marijuana is kind of an interesting one because you grow up your entire life saying or hearing that it's a bad thing or that it's illegal, and now that you can legally invest in it, it's kind of a cool thing. And third, I think since it's so cheap, I think it's possible that Robinhood is giving it away for their free stock when you refer someone to sign up on the site. And so I think those are kind of the three factors that make it the most popular stock on the site. And if you notice, I didn't mention the fact that it's an attractive looking stock, because if you look at the history of the stock, I don't know why anyone would be taking a position in this. So in the past 12 months, the stock is down around 65%. And so that does not look pretty solid. And then when you look at the year already that it's had, that's also not good. But then when you look at the history of the stock for the full time that it's been able to be traded, it's up a pretty decent amount. But the push up and the fall is one of the main reasons why I don't think this is an attractive stock. Technical analysis is one of my favorite ways to look at a company, but today we're not going to be heading onto the computer at all. From a stock that's fallen so far, and the fundamentals are such a problem that technical analysis can only help you so much. I always talk about my requirements for entering a stock is that it needs to be a stock that I know and I trust. And the trusting part is a reason why technical analysis does not work on Aurora Cannabis. It's not a stock that I trust. The way they operate their business, the stock could go out of business anytime. When I talk about something like one of my riskier plays like Macy's, I know that they're not going to go out of business right away, and I trust them to be able to stay afloat. Aurora Cannabis, I cannot say the same thing. And so technical analysis is used when you can have reliable price action. Aurora Cannabis has just been falling out of the sky. Okay, so now let's talk about the history of the stock. So it's been able to be traded since 2015, but it's had a history. The history has gotten a lot more interesting recently. So ACB is a Canadian weed stock that at one point had the largest market cap of all weed stocks in around 2017. And since then, it has fallen down the market cap list. And so when I talked about TLRY, that was at number 8 on that list. And Aurora Cannabis is one spot above that at number 7. So they're not the leader when it comes to market cap, but they've had a history of being the top. So Aurora Cannabis has been traded on the New York Stock Exchange a week after Canada legalized weed in their country. And so once it became legal there, it went public on the New York Stock Exchange. And it's been interesting since then. And so in the history of the company, it's had two really significant moves to the upside. And the first was in 2017 when the stock went from $2 up to $10. And I believe that this movement was caused from Aurora Cannabis moving from the commodities market in Toronto to the Toronto Stock Exchange. So kind of legitimized trading a weed stock. So it went from $2 to $10, and then 2018 saw the price fall from $10 down to $5 by October. And so the price spiked in October of 2018, and the reason was there was a news event that came out that said that Coca-Cola and Aurora Cannabis were doing studies together, trying to figure out a way to make a product between the two companies possible. And that kind of legitimized weed stocks overall, and all weed stocks benefited from it. I talked about in the TLRY video that a lot of these weed stocks, if good news comes out for one of them, it legitimizes the business for a stock trader, and it makes the whole market go up overall. And so Aurora Cannabis was the cause of this move, but it never turned it out to be anything. So it was kind of a false positive. So it pushed the stock up, and so the market just kind of waited after that news for any follow-up on that news story. And when that did not happen, it went from $10 back to $5. And so that's October of 2018. And from that time until March of 2019, the stock kind of steadily climbed. It went from $5 up to $7.50. And that's kind of the end of the good history of the stock. Since March of this year, it has fallen from $7.50, and now it's currently trading around $1.75. And so that is an incredible fall over the past year. So what's the problem with Aurora Cannabis? There has to be something wrong with the fundamentals of the company overall. And the problem isn't just the fundamentals of the company. The fundamentals are definitely a problem. However, there is a bigger problem when it comes to weed stocks. Before we talk about the bad stuff, I want to talk about the two things that Aurora Cannabis does really well. And the first one is their potential production values. And so all the articles that I saw, the ability for them to be growing legal marijuana is extremely high. And so if other companies start legalizing weed or the distribution allows it to increase, they have the potential to sell a lot more than they currently are. The problem is, the news story from today is that they're selling one of their largest greenhouses for cash. And so that's not a good sign. The second reason why ACB is kind of attractive is that they have a very large international presence. Most of the Canadian weed stocks don't have an international presence, and Aurora Cannabis has 25 countries that they've either partnered with or are in talks with. And that's really attractive if legal marijuana becomes a very common thing throughout the world. So if that happens and the production can be allowed to be throttled up to 100%, they have a lot of room to expand. The problem is, I don't know if they're going to make it to that point. Legal weed in Canada is just a huge problem right now. Since its legalization in 2017, the Canadian government has been really slow in allowing dispensaries to pop up. So one of the largest areas in Ontario, they have around 15 million people, and there are currently 24 dispensaries active. The current town that I'm in right now has 50,000 people, and there's 12 dispensaries in there. So even though weed is legal, people are having a difficult time getting access to this legal weed. In addition, it's significantly cheaper to buy from the black market dealers than it is to buy from a dispensary. Most of the statistics I saw were 45 to 50% cheaper to buy it not from a dispensary. So that's not a good sign for these companies that are selling legal weed at a higher price. And since it's a legal product, it's being taxed by the federal government, and so that increases the price. If you're buying from a black market dealer, they're not paying taxes to the government, so they don't have to put those taxes into the prices. That's one of the main problems that's going with Canadian weed. Their neighbors to the south, the United States, that's where I'm at right now, we're not helping them at all either. And so one of the main problems is that while some states have legalized marijuana, the United States as a whole, it's still considered a Schedule I drug, which means it is illegal by the federal government. And so if Aurora Cannabis wants to start selling to the United States, it's really difficult for the dispensaries to be able to finance. And since it's illegal at a federal level, dispensaries in the United States cannot get loans through large banks because it's considered an illegal activity. And so it really limits the financing options that these dispensaries in the United States have. And since there's a lot of people in the United States, it's a huge market that's not being utilized by these Canadian stocks. And so until that changes, they're kind of in a tough spot. So now let's talk about the fundamentals of the company. I've talked about the problems that it's had with its price history and with just legal marijuana as a whole, but Aurora Cannabis has some really bad fundamentals. One of the main things is that they're not profitable. They've had a couple quarters where they've broken above zero and they started making a little bit of money. The problem is it has not been consistent. They've done it a couple times, and since then they've still been losing money. All the fundamentals that I've looked at, while revenue has been increasing, their long-term debt has also been increasing at a kind of a scary rate. And so all of the fundamentals that I see of the company are telling me that this is not a great idea. I think it's going to be a long time until Aurora Cannabis can be profitable, and I think that they have too many roadblocks for them to make it reliably. I think it's kind of a 50-50 on whether or not they're going to make it. From all estimates that I've seen, it's probably going to take around until 2022 until the company is fully profitable. I just don't know if they're going to be able to survive that long. And so in this video, I've talked a lot of bad things about the company. And so it makes sense that I would recommend avoiding this company at all costs. One of the things that I'm really interested in seeing is, since weed stocks are very, very often shorted, which means when the stock price goes down, they make money. So one of the most common places for people to short are in the weed stocks and with Tesla. And so there's been a lot of news recently about all these short sellers that have been burned as the stock price increased. And so one of the things that I'm really looking at for Aurora Cannabis is a short squeeze. And basically what that means is that a lot of people will be shorting the company. And so if there's surprising news that pushes the stock up, maybe they break another deal with Coca-Cola, they have surprise earnings, and the stock pushes up. If the price moves high enough where the short sellers decide to buy their shares back, it's going to inflate the stock even higher. And so while this isn't an organic reason for the stock price to increase, you're going to see a really large jump in the price. And so I'm kind of waiting to see that happen. One of the most recent examples of that was a stock called NIO, which is NIO, which is a Chinese car company. And so they had been sliding for a long time, and it was a very often shorted company. And when they produced bad earnings, but weren't as bad as predicted, the stock price increased, and I'm pretty sure it went up around 100% in one day. So I'm kind of looking to see if Aurora Cannabis will have the same thing. I would never take a position hoping for that to happen, but I'm going to set an alert around 25% up from the current price to see if that ever happens. So let me know what you think of my evaluation of Aurora Cannabis and just Canadian weed stocks as a whole. I think there are a lot of hurdles that these companies need to go through, and a lot of them are not their own problems. Just Canadian weed as a whole is a dangerous game to be in right now. I think the process of the government implementing these laws and regulations about it, and just the difficulty that they have at selling their stuff at a competitive price with the black market is going to make things very difficult for weed stocks overall. In a couple weeks, I'm going to make a video about the only weed stock that I've ever taken a position in and felt decent in. And so I think it's the safest place when it comes to weed stocks, and I'll have that out in a couple weeks. So let me know what you thought about this video, if you learned anything about Aurora Cannabis or just the weed industry as a whole. And if you have another company or a video idea that you'd like me to go over in a future episode, please leave it in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching this episode of Robinhood Top Stocks, and I'll see you in the next episode.